And just a short intro. I'm Pavel Kravchenko. I'm a co-founder of Distributed Lab, blockchain expertise center. We are doing these webinars together with our local partner InnoHub. They are developing this market in UAE and not only. And our goal is to bring like the best knowledge, like the best people, and try to kind of not just think about certain things, but ask people who actually have done that in the local market. And again, the combined knowledge should be distributed to others. So this webinar will be on YouTube as well. Yeah, as soon as we finish.
That's great.
So today we have Mohamed Roushdy. Correct me if I'm wrong pronunciation.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's completely right.
Yeah. I know Mohamed for quite a while, a couple of years at least. We've met a few times in Dubai, and he works extensively in financial sector, and in like as chief information officer, does a lot of things. I would love you to introduce yourself as well. So, like, we want to explore different ways to collaborate, and that's also a reason why we're having this webinar. Is actually very often for me is the best way to conduct a conversation. Like surprisingly, when we are on a webinar, it's like if you like people are listening, we are talking with less noise and like more precise things. So just you can treat it as a friendly conversation. We can the topic can be different, obviously, because we are working in digital transformation, tokenization field. It will be about this topic, but we can deviate a little bit. So, Mohamed, floor is yours, please. Yeah, tell us
Thank you,
about yourself.
Pavel, and really it is a pleasure and honor to be part of this webinar and your series of webinars, the weekly ones. I'm following up the same. You know, like I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mohamed Roushdy. I'm a technology expert. I've been working in IT and technology finance for more than 25 years, and I've been a CIO in financial services around 15 years, and I work as well in real estate and consulting companies like BWC, Booz & Co, and others. So I'm very enthusiastic about blockchain, about distributed ledger. I do some activities around here as well with colleagues around in the market, and trying to see how can we really, bring this technology or this mode of business here. And I believe we are very lucky being here in UAE. There is very interesting initiative happening here, and I think it's moving on. And this is something really, I mean, we are quite optimistic about it. And I believe distributed labs as well have been coming here a lot, and I think they've been helping us and helping the market here to be set up and to be like ready for this kind of era, which is very, very important for everybody, which is really blockchain, distributed ledger. So I think this is the way forward. And as a country here, I think Dubai especially, they have some mandates. By next year, we will have some great use cases will be there. Some banks already started doing some great work around. Some real estate giants started. So it's great really here to collaborate with you and discuss the way forward, how it's happening here in the region and what's happening at your end, and how can you collaborate and support us as well.
Okay, thanks. My first question, and that's from where we can start, is like, how would you define tokenization to financial people? Because for them, it's a new word. They have different opinions. They have heard about ICOs and this and that, and sometimes it's a complete mess. So what's your, like, how do you position this?
You know, that's a very important question, actually, and very smart. Thanks for asking. You know, it's become like, especially for financial services people, like, which is, they have lots of, vehicles of financing and debts, equities, loans, everything, like. So you look at the sector as is of today, but what we try to tell people, like you can work in a, maybe a different mode of working should be there, because we can even tell people about Uber. It bring to us something called sharing economy. But sharing economy, nobody thought about it at the time and said, okay, sharing economy is something, who will share a car? How can I put my car to be used? How can I be even an Uber driver? How can people use the sharing economy? And this was something great for everybody, Airbnb and others. So all the sharing economy came with a different mode of business. The operating model, the business model was totally changing, and we can see how it was picking up. And the same for finance. While we have lots of deals, what's a big deals happening, we have big assets around, we have trillions of assets around us in liquid, and this illiquid assets, either you are a very big tycoon and you have lots of money to buy a big, big building, or an apartment, someone into this an apartment, or you can see how many millions people pay for culture and painting and so on, and others they cannot. But why not we bring this to other level, which fractions, of which is tokenization, which is at like a fraction of this, could be really used as as a financial mood, or as a vehicle for financing, or even raising funds. So why we have to work in the big and start? Why not we bring in this small one? And because we have something, because before it was really difficult, because being a centralized approach here, a centralized mood, it might be quite difficult to do all of these. But because transparency and security and so on, now the technology of blockchain or the distributed ledger came to fill a gap here, which you can even go peer-to-peer. So even because the cost, people sometimes talk about the cost of doing something like that. It will be high cost and so on. But now with the distributed ledger, which we can even deal with each other peer-to-peer, then things are different. So this is where we are trying to tell people, not doing a fraction of what you are doing, give it to more people around, getting more people to interact, to bank, to finance. And then this is a different way of, I call it a financial inclusion. Because financial inclusion, people used to say before, financial inclusion meaning you have a bank account. That's great, you have a bank account, but what you will do with the bank account? You receive your salary, you spend money, but there's something else you want to do. You wanna buy with a little bit of your money a part of this tower. Can you do? No, of course you cannot even imagine really to do it. But today with fraction or tokenization, what you call it, it becomes possible for people to tap into different financing, into different investment. Even people can raise funds through. So this is where we're trying to make it easier for colleagues in finance and incumbent, old style or the current style, how this will help, in the way forward.
Okay, so you explain it through a function. Like, okay, we divide assets, we let people like participate. So we democratize access. Yeah, indeed, you couldn't buy Burj Khalifa. Now you can buy. You will be able to buy a piece of it, and maybe for $1, but still, like, you will benefit from it. So, but when you explain it through a function, I think some people may say, "Oh, but cannot we do it today with existing technology? Like, what's the connection of blockchain?" Or maybe like, "Oh, please elaborate."
You are right. We have, I will tell you, it's a very interesting question as well, because we already have a very good use case. It happened when successful as well, we should say, like investment company we're doing, they buy apartment, you can even go for fraction, you put some money, you have a little bit of share. But if you look at the process, it's a cumbersome process. You have to open a bank account, and then you have to see how can you transfer your money. Then it is more domestic or local. So if you look at this one, is still you can do it, but if you want to do it in a big scale really, and you want to do it more seamless, then you have to go for the underlying business process itself. Still you can, I agree, you can do it in fraction, a little bit of some technologies are there, but if you want to bring it to a big scale, and if you're able to trade internally and even overseas and domestically and so on, and if you want to get as well the kind of security and immutability and all transparency, then you have to get out from the centralization. And this is the beauty here.
Okay.
Being centralized, still someone is controlling each and everything happening here. When we go, we say being distributed, then we have to bring all the parties, all the peers. So the mood is different. So the underlying technology or business model, we are changing for good actually. But still the same, you can do it. But the cost, I would say, you still can move from Dubai to Abu Dhabi in 3 hours or 4 hours. But even you can go for 1 hour, or 1.5 hours. So you don't get a speed ticket, So the ways you can achieve, you might be able to achieve it, but maybe in a more time, it's a more cost as well. You will not be able to bring more investor on the same platform like what you do with something which will be more universal. So that's why it's taking time, by the way. It's not easy. It's going to take more time till you get this new business model in place, which is a digital ledger. But I think it's moving in a good way everywhere here now, and I think even our region is moving very well. Very well. I think this year and next year we'll see some good progress as well.
Okay, interesting. So basically, you say, okay, this is possible in traditional sense, but as soon as you touch like tricky questions like trust, security, privacy, you face such challenges that you have to spend a lot of money.
True.
And
time as well.
blockchain
and time.
Time. And basically, blockchain is this like partial answer to some of these things and makes it easier.
That is true. And as I said, you also you have the ability to reach a bigger, as I said, a bigger crowd for your businesses. And I think this is what we should even think about it. It might not happen globally, maybe globally it will be difficult, but be in a domestic point of view, it might happen. Now, I'll give you an example. We have now some use case happening between UAE and Saudi for a hybrid digital currency. The digital currency was meant for payment actually, but maybe this one also will go for more than payment. Once it is successful, we can able to do it for payment. Maybe this will be used for other vehicles of financing between the, and this can bring even GCC, for example, and we can have the securities harmonization between here and there. It might happen. So we're not only talking about a country, you have to also to open the doors for other investor, external investor, overseas, domestic, and so on. So I believe that the DLT open, the doors for that. The centralized, it has been there for a while, done great, but I think with the new norm happening, the DLT play a big role here now.
Okay, so it's like as soon as you start introducing such a digital instrument, you may find another ways to expand trade, to stimulate certain activities. So it's like, yeah, I also face challenges the same as you, like when I explain to people what we are working on and why this is important. And I really want to hear like your opinion on these things. And yeah, you've touched the point of like global access to a digital asset. But this aspect touches the like KYC, AML, and regulation. And how do you usually like? What are your thoughts about that?
That's right. If you look at the distributed ledger or the way like the business model is moving, having as I said, like you have to bring people outside and so on. It brings a very important part here, which is regulation and KYC and compliance. And if you can see today, one of the most important aspects for this technology and this business models to flourish and move is the ability to bring, regulators in place, their ability to understand the model of this business model or operating model, I would say. And then their ability to come with some regulation or some standardization, I would say, which can bring this one into light, So, and this is happening, we might complain and say it's happening slowly, but I would say, it's not happening, it's happening, it's taking its own pace. Because now when you are trying to change the fundamentals of the business, not only the top layer of the business, then it's quite difficult. It's not that easy. So now, as I said, you have been centralized. You want to go peer to peer. Of course, will not be 100%. You might have even some intermediary as well. But if you want to bring this one, then regulator has to have a say here, and they have to work with innovators as well. And this is, I would say, it's not only regulation or regulator responsibility only. It's people, innovators like you, like others, like big companies, which they want to innovate. They have to take all this idea, go to regulators, work with them in sandbox, which is happening now, try to explain to them how this model is working, and then we come collectively with the new, regulation, or can enhance this one. As I said, the distributed ledger is something called distributed. By nature, it's distributed, which means you need to bring all the stakeholders together. You cannot just work alone, which means as well, if I have an email today, you remember when the email came, if I have email alone, then I'm not able to use, right? So I can send to myself. But if we need to use an email, like this is the easy part, long time, I should have an email, you should have an email, everybody should have the same. We should be in one level. So I think bringing regulation in place, bringing as well, like the companies, which is investors, bringing as well the company which need investment, for example, you need to bring all the stakeholders, and you need to start working in the regulation. But this will need as well, it's not like a small investor or small company will come with the idea or able to influence the regulation. That's why you could see the big players, when they come in place now for tokenization, for STOs, whatever, then they are able to influence and work with regulators, and regulators are able to even respond to them. And this is what started happening. So STOs, after the ICO wave, now STOs came, I think a year back, a year and a half. And now we could see, for example, SCCA and UAE are coming soon with their own regulation. There is some paper came last month, I believe, between the FSA and Deloitte, talking about the digital custody. ADGM came before with some paper as well about the digital assets. In Bahrain, there is something happening already, which is they done a great job. So you can see now all regulators are coming up with something, but this will need all the stakeholders to be part of this game, and the ability to come and try POCs and to get something. Blockchain, 3 years back, we were in real hype, Everybody said blockchain, everything will be blockchain, everything will be blockchain. And this hype also created some damage, I would say. ICOs created some damage as well. But I believe with STOs, with something which is backed by assets, by services, things start getting better, clearer as well. And the regulator start working with innovation, and even central banks started as well. And this is a great thing happening here. So I believe we are coming now to a stage which we're going to see something really happening on the ground.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. It's like a continuous process, and we have to start it in order to like fix certain things. We cannot fix everything from the beginning. What usually people talk about challenge, certain things that blockchain like enables in contradiction with regulation. So it's not just the regulation tells, like in Ukraine we had a case where the special type of security, the warehouse receipt, was defined as a paper with a certain number, and that was the reality for like 20 years. And basically, as soon as digital receipts were introduced, they were contradicting the law, right? So let's say it's paper. No, you cannot make it digital. But the easy, I mean, it take 5 years for the government to change regulations. And if they're smart enough, they wouldn't say digital, or they wouldn't say blockchain, because world could be like another type of system, and blockchain won't be relevant for the purpose. They will be changing the law again, but they would rather say like anything that represents, right, a warehouse receipt. But this is still an easy case. The hard case is when the second type of the case is when the law presumes that certain type of intermediary is needed and was licensed to do certain activity, and now chain can eliminate the need. timestamp, for example. Yeah, I mean, I make some shortcuts for the examples, but certain intermediaries could be eliminated. Maybe like they're all reduced by like 99%. This second type of things that blockchain can kind of simplify, and it's a challenge because in order to remove certain intermediaries means like abandoning certain business relationships, and it's always hard. And the third type of complexity is like when blockchain allows people to do an interaction that government regulate, and now it's kind of, you cannot really trace. So like with as soon as internet appeared, you cannot control internet. Now like mesh networks appear, blockchain, and I don't know, anonymous proof of work, and they cannot control who is doing validation of transactions. So miners are kind of distributed. So we are having the situation when government can control certain things and are not able to inject like control mechanisms. It's again the clash between, could be mentality, could be reality. So what do you think will happen? Because these challenges are indeed an issue.
True. See, with all, it's very important. Let us realize with all the changes happening from a technology, from a business model, operating model, there is a culture shift has to happen. I think this is very, very important. And I think maybe some people, which they are, forward thinking, they start, talking about, why we are doing this, why we don't do it differently. So the culture shift should happen, from the way we used to deal with everything before to a new norm. The same way now today, if you ask someone, will you be able to stay 3 months at home, work remotely? They will say, no way. We have to be in the office. We have to meet. We have to discuss. We have, right? But today with the pandemic, we're able really to work from home. Many things was happening. So the same should happen when you are moving from a very centralized, approach, operating model to a new one. And that's why we need to bring all the parties on board, legal, regulation. And this is what I think the successful ones are, the ones really coming from this background. They bring all the stakeholders, they talk about all the issues, they put the minimum, I would say, or the needed security and risk and compliance in place, which can be like a principle-based regulation, I would say, not a rule-based regulation. And this will bring some kind of fairness for all the parties. But you cannot really, I would say, if you want really to secure your computer system, don't use it. This is the best way. If you want it to be 100% secure from hackers, then shut down your system, bar it off. Will you do that? Of course not. The same here for this new norm or the new model which we are trying to achieve, that this one, you bring everybody together, make sure that it will be a stages. I will tell you one thing. We could see the permission list used to be a debatable. It's still organization which is really need to, which enterprises to go for blockchains to prefer, permissioned. Consortium like R3, like others. This is will take first, they will start first, and then you will come later on with permissionless and others. So I think there is a way or a move will happen where the more secure, the more conservative part will reveal, and then later on, once everything in place and people are comfortable, then you go for the second stage. I believe this is what's going to happening. It will not be like you will not be able to go 180 degrees change, and sometimes the technology is there, but the business model and people are not there, are not really able to take the risk and move on. So I would say this is what will happen in the beginning, and then slowly you're going to see the adoption happening. Slowly you're going to see the regulation in place. People will digest what is this new model, and then we'll be able to get what you can call the right to reach this not a destination, to reach to something what we are trying to achieve from the from the digital ledger. distributed ledger.
Okay, Mohammed. So what's your estimate? What you're feeling? How much time it takes to like switch one to another?
Maybe 100% not. I expect by in 2 years of time from today, I would see that this year, which we have the COVID and we have what's happening, definitely bring many things down. You know, at least the investor appetite. Yes, it's good to go for digital ledger to save money. There is many other things good, but at the same time, people start looking now to like they have to to let the light on, as you can say. So business as usual. They want to survive from this pandemic, and then I believe 21 we're going to have maybe a jump start again. Things should go in a more faster speed. I would say 22, 23, we're going to see real use cases happening in the market. Now, I would say this year, I think it's good that some regulation is going on. Maybe this also gives some, speed was a little bit lower. So the regulation is able some regulation is able to start working with it. It's happening as of today. I think 21, 22, by 22, 23, I think we're going to see a mature use case, but 21, we're going to see some as well.
Okay. Yeah.
What's your opinion as well from your point of view in Europe and other places you are in?
It's interesting because I joined the industry in 2014. And, I was mostly reading the American news about that. I was in that like informational environment, and everybody said it's next year, like tomorrow, like very soon banks will do this and that. And then 2015 came and nothing happened. Again, the same announcements, 16, 17,
I agree.
18.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. Let me give you some example. Long time back, it's a technology example. In 2008, I have visited the big factory in Ireland, Scotland, sorry, for NFC technology. It's only 2-3 years back people start using NFC. From 2008, 2000, maybe 16, 17, 18. The technology or the mood start picking up, but it was there. It does take time, really. And as I said, the underlying technology or the operating model is a big change happening and need lots of people to be collaborating. I would say because of what is going on, I think by 21, 22, 23, you're going to start see 22, 23, you're going to see some real use cases. We could see some big real estate companies. I can see Amar here. I could see a question was coming here. Any tokenization happening here in the region? I think the biggest thing which everybody waiting for, Amar, which is the biggest, real estate developer here in the region, and they are coming with their own, tokenization soon. And I believe from the information we know that there is lots of work happening there now. We can see at the end of the year or beginning of next year, whatever. So I think we're going to see something soon in the market. But this will be, also to test the market, to test the investor appetite, to see how the model is working, to tweak it on, and then and so on. I think this is happening.
Okay, Mohamed, we have a couple of questions.
Yes, please.
First one: why some regular person will need to buy on Burj Khalifa?
Yeah. Okay. I think anybody. There is two things here. People like to to create. First of all, the return is very important. Some people might buy because they like to buy. They have something because it's iconic and so on, for example. But the majority of people, they want to, get some kind of value. That's why it's very important that this kind of project shouldn't be taken as a technology project. It's a business. People shouldn't know, blockchain. We say, okay, what's the blockchain? Okay, it's a mood, it's a way of doing business. But maybe it'll be easier. I shouldn't even tell him blockchain. I said peer to peer. We're gonna be easier for you to invest, to be easier for you to liquidate. There is many other things there behind saying DLT or blockchain to normal investor or not all. I'm thinking the big investor, yes, understood, but we shouldn't really talk too much about technology terms and should use more business terms. So people will buy in Burj Khalifa or an iconic place because it is a very good retain. It's very well known, something very trustworthy. It is something, some people would like maybe to own something great in this place. So it should be at the end of the day, the majority will buy because you are get a good return, not just because you're going to have like the certificate and say, okay, I'm having a part in
Yeah,
Burj
but
Khalifa.
maybe the first category you'll buy because it's fun. It's like
It's a PR as well. I agree with you. The first part.
collectibles, like the husband of my cousin has bought a certificate that a certain star was named after her, you know.
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
true. No, I agree, and I have some fun the same. A friend of mine living in one property here in Abu Dhabi, and I used to have something at this time. Then I tell him, by the way, I'm an owner in this place. You are living in my place. Of course, I was owning a small apartment at this time, but yes, sometimes we feel privileged that we are part of these iconic places. This will be a first part, but later on, the majority of people will try to get a return and get something which is really the trust, and they don't worry about it. It will not go.
right. The second question, like, do you know any case with tokenization in UAE?
The only one is happening today, as I said, I'mar, and this is the biggest one for real estate tokenization, and we are all waiting for it. And I think the news is saying they're going well. They work with different companies here and outside, and this is the one really everybody's waiting for, because this is a big, one of the biggest developer in the whole market. And they are not only here; they are only here. They are in Middle East. They are in Europe. They are in many places. So I think this is the one really everybody's waiting. There is some work was done with other companies trying here in UAE and in Saudi as well. There is some kind of tokenization project happening, but the biggest one is I'mar one.
Okay. Okay, and why do you think it's among, like, besides reasons that we've already mentioned, why it's taking so slowly? Like, what are other obstacles?
I will tell you one thing. Yeah, that is true. If you look at KYC and ML, and this is a very important thing, everybody in any country, in any jurisdiction, very much worried to be part of any of these, anti-money laundering, whatever. So it's very important that when you are putting a model, you are able really, as you said, like you have to make sure that you are compliant, not only here, even outside. Even GDPR, for example, though it's not touching us here, still many of the companies are taking care of GDPR regulation because of European customers and so on. The world is a small, it's a small world, it's a small village, I would say. So, for example, today, if you want to go and in the digital ledger and so on, you have to have even the digital identity, for example. How many countries here can sign a contract digitally because they have a digital identity? Nobody. So we have to look at the infrastructure as well. We are lucky here, we have something called UEPass in UAE. I think other countries are doing some work. And now I could sign my contract using UEPass. So this is a digital identity based on our Emirates ID, for example. And this has become, facilitating this kind of transaction digitally. You cannot just go blockchain and still you have to go and visit somewhere to sign a contract, for example. So you need to bring the infrastructure in place. You need to bring regulation in place, and then you bring the company which is ready to invest, or the big companies like I'mar and other, which is really they can influence. You bring all of these stakeholders. I think this is like, it needs everybody. So government has a big part here to play because of the infrastructure and regulation as well. So if you want to bring all of this together, it just takes time. But if you're going to ask me if something was centralized and you want to implement in my organization, we could do it in months because it's easy. It's only us to decide. But if you want to bring all these stakeholders in one place and they agree on a model, you can see the most successful project in blockchain was government-based consortium, or people business will bring each other, Walmart and others. So if you look at all this one, it has to be, you have to bring all the stakeholders. Bringing them in, it's not an easy thing to be done. That's why even government-led consortium is the best ones, because they're able to bring all the stakeholders, they're able to mandate some dates, and then they move things forward. At the same time, the infrastructure for digital identity is very important. EKYC and ML, all of this is important to bring the value of the distributed ledger or a new framework, a business model, operating model to work. Without this one, it will be very difficult. So, as I said, you bring the technology in its place is great, but if you want to take it to everybody around, then you have to bring all of this, and you have to make sure it's really serving everybody and everybody's needs, or everybody's issues or concerns are being met. That's why it does take time.
Yeah.
Let me add something else. For example, security. Private keys. If someone is today like working and exchange whatever, like we have some cases, someone died, no private key, what we're gonna do? All of these things come to people, security. Where are you gonna keep your private key? What is the custodian? Digital custodian. All of these need to be in place. So we are able really to bring all of this, like as I said, POC pilot will happen, then things will go clearer, and I think it will move. That's why it's taking time. I used to say two things. People are very concerned about two things in their lives: their health and their money. So health and money are very important. So you wouldn't. Some people are very enthusiastic. Said, "Okay, I'm gonna put my money in fintech." Fine, you put your money in a fintech. Yeah, fine, but once or twice. How many people will do? Still, people go to banks. They wanna get the comfort first. So that's why it does take time.
Okay. From the other side, the biggest innovations have happened when people didn't expect them at all, and nobody asked for permission. Like it was to a certain extent, and it happened with internet, with the message, with streaming Skype. They piggyback on telecom infrastructure, with Bitcoin as well. So can you imagine some use case for blockchain that's kind of stands outside and can be implemented right now and can benefit a lot of people right now?
I think the electronic voting.
It's a hard question.
No, it's okay. I think the electronic voting happened already. If you want to vote now, if you can see the AGMs for the big companies today, everybody would like to go. If they are not attending, then they cannot, get the 20% or 30%. This, for example, is a great thing. Everybody is able to log in and attend the AGMs or the meeting of the big companies meeting, the shareholder meeting, and all. This is happening. So part of this things is happening already, and it happened here, I think, in UAE and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and other places, that you can do your shareholder meeting and you can see who's attending, people can vote, and all of this, I think it is there. Although, and even this includes also a good money on it, because voting some big decision happening, this is already there, and some it's happened already. But as I said, but this is still, you're talking about a closed network here, permissioned, a group of people, they agree to use the model. So this is happening. I believe that health is very important, I would say, because what happened today, taking blockchain into health and the records, giving the authority for people to access your records from different areas. I think this is very, very important today, after all what's happening from a pandemic, from a health issues. So the health part is another great use cases for blockchain and distributed ledger. All of this authentication, authorization, I think it's a big time important for everybody, not only the money. So I believe this is what I would say, it's happening, should happen even faster. So not only finance and money and securitization.
I agree. And we currently have customers asking for blockchain project.
Yes.
Sorry, maybe. So I ask, do you have customers who are asking or working with blockchain projects?
There is here, I have seen, like there is some, stuff happening here around the health, government as well. They have some interesting project, part of the 2021-22. There is some very interesting project about the health. There's some important use cases about the medicine as well. When the medicine arrived, it was open. It was like, how the compliance happened during the journey of the medicine. So the use cases for the health, I think it's very interesting. It is picking up very fast, and I believe this will go hand in hand with the other securitization STOs or others as well. So I believe this is an important part, which is also developers or innovators and companies should look at from a distributed ledger point of view. It's very, very important. Today, I will tell you how many times people go to hospital, do a blood test. You go to another hospital, do another blood test, do X-ray. Too many, and waste of money. Like if you are able to tap into this data, which is happening already with some use cases, why I have to do it in a different?
Yeah.
So
For
all of
an
these, you are wasting time. Why the same what the government is trying to do? You go to into government in a year, I think, or whatever, then you don't have, nobody will ask you for any paper because everything is there somewhere will be, like I will be able to tap into your data anywhere it's in the chain or the network. The same for health. So I believe this is a very important part which you need to be, I think it's happening already. And I believe there's some use cases happening here. I met some people on that, even some donation or donors for their, part of the body and so on. There's another interesting use case happening here. A company done it also here. So this interesting use case is really is very good. It's away from money, but for a very important needs, which is I think blockchain distributed ledger play a very big role here.
Okay. Yeah. It's like for a technical person, a lot of problems that we have around are very simple. It's like crazy why they haven't been solved. But yeah,
That is true. And even
indeed.
simple, I'm saying, I think this is, you can do it today. I mean, if you bring all of these hospitals in one, it's through the government portal, whatever, then many of these you can save lots of money actually for insurance, money for the government, for people and so on. So I think this, the efficiency optimization will be very high here.
What would be your algorithm to proceed? You mentioned something like digital identity, like education of society, regulation. If you would draft in the roadmap, what would you put on it?
I talk about the first thing here. We need an infrastructure from government which is facilitate the digital ID. We'll not talk about worldwide, a digital ID now. I know there is some great efforts from a blockchain point of view to have, a universal ID. So the first thing is that you need to get the digital ID from on a country, and then maybe later on a domestic or on a whatever. That's very important. And then you need to move the next step here into bringing some major use cases, like getting banks and getting government to do some basic use cases, which is, we shouldn't really go too much. Even we talked about before, Ripple and others, they are doing this cross-border transaction. It's fine, it's great, but let us start with the small use cases here today. There are some use cases, for example, I ask a letter today from a bank, the other bank, I have to go and give it. Can we collaborate in the normal use cases which can bring the confidence and get even the people in banking and financial services to start using this technology for the basis which we do? It has lots of wasting of time and effort and money, and then start building up. I know the moon, we need to go to the moon, but let us just be realistic as well, because as I said, there's a cultural change has to happen here. So you have to bring the government support needed there, and then major institutions like financial services, like stock markets. All of this also need to have another layer, and then another layer which work in from a health point of view, and start with, as I said, the basic use cases, and start building up. Now we need to reach something really very far, but without bringing this basis in place and getting people to have what you call the confidence on what you are doing, and then try to tweak it and make sure it's working and running, then we can go for the next and so on. Is very, very important. So we have to take in a stages and step by step from my point of view. And I think there is many good use cases could be done. But also it's very important from a national wide is to have a very good, like a roadmap, you can tell. Even for AI bias, for example, they came with some regulation, very important. So it can even, help innovators and people to work. So you need to prepare the environment for people innovation to work. As I said, regulation shouldn't be rule-based, should be like, as I said, like, principle-based. So many of these need to be done. Then you are start moving on, and then you are able to get some benefits in 2-3 years, 3 to 5 years from today.
Okay. And by the way, do you follow some other like regulatory activities like in other countries, maybe US or Europe or Asia?
See, it's very important. I think the nearest to our jurisdiction here is Europe. And you could see, I think, you know, between here, like GDPR, for example, we have some GDPR happening here. I think open banking, for example, open banking is in Europe. Today, open banking is happening here without regulation. So even it's started going on. So the nearest to us here, I believe, Europe. If you talk about the regulation for crypto, I think Switzerland was, you know, it's becoming, you know, from beginning they've done some great work. Maybe some other, you know, jurisdiction, but all around Europe. And plus we have Singapore as well. There's lots of collaboration between Singapore and UAE and the region. There is lots of MOUs happening also from the west to here. So yeah, this is the two areas really, which is, you know, Southeast Asia and Europe are the one really which is very much coming to collaborate with Middle East and GCC. And you can see lots of collaboration between the fintech centers here and Singapore and other places in Europe as well.
Okay, clear. So you would rather like positive on the UAE like path to the digital future?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, as I said, because the building blocks are being built, as I said. One of the things I told you, the digital identification. Without this one, I think with having this one, even the EKYCs, they are working. I get to know the central bank, if you would, they are doing a very good initiative called, you know, the fintech office, and they are working in quite good initiatives. So maybe we're going to see it beginning of next year. I think Sam and Saudi done a great job as well, and they're doing. So I think that a good thing about the region also, you know, Babel, is like there's a good kind of healthy competition happening here. So you can see, I think Bahrain is doing great in some areas. UAE as well doing. You have two centers here, fintech Hive, for example, DFSA and EDGM. Saudis they have, and now the harmonization between this might bring even a bigger value here. So having this collaboration between UAE and Saudi for you know, a digital currency, this might even open big doors for us here. So I believe it's happening. As I said, it does take time because, you know, the new ecosystem here is different. You cannot just really think that, you know, changing the underlying principle will be very fast. But I think it's being done in a wise way. They look at good use cases and you know, success and failure from other countries, and I believe this is being taken care. And I think we're going to see something. I think from 21 we're going to see some progress. 22, 23, I would say we'll see some real use cases. This is what I'm wishing this to happen.
Good. Interesting. Okay, Mohamed, that's probably enough, you know, from my side. So we will see each other very soon, next week.
Thank you very much, Babel. I'm really happy for this conversation. And
thanks for the time. That was interesting, very sharp answers. So honestly, I have a lot of information to process.
Thanks a lot, myself, and we hope to collaborate soon, inshallah, here, and we'll see you here doing great use cases and pilots here. You are investing a lot of time here, you and your team, and this is something really we all appreciate.
Okay. Thank you, Mohamed.
Take care. Stay safe, all of you guys. A great time. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.